Hi, my name is Vadim, and in this video we'll talk about the brand new MIDI controller, the Whammy D2, which can be used with the Digitech Whammy 4, 5, and DT. The idea of a box, which stores a lot of different types of Whammy presets for all occasions, started its life in the first version of the Whammy D, and it got a second life here. The device itself is a metal case with a sturdy top panel of plexiglass. The device weighs about 400 grams. It features 56 presets for each type of Whammy. 56 for the Whammy 4, 56 for the 5, and 56 for the Whammy DT. But, since you will probably use your Whammy D2 only for one type of Whammy, the one that you have right now, we can assume that at the same time you can store 56 presets, but not 168. 2 of the 56 presets are unchangeable. The remaining can be reprogrammed as desired. To turn the pedal on or off, press A or B. The most important and eye-catching thing is the screen on the top panel. When turned on, it lights up beautifully and displays the company logo. On the right side, there is a multifunctional knob that changes presets and a power jack. The pedal can be powered by any power supply of 9 or 12 volts, AC or DC, and either polarity. On the rear panel, there are inputs and outputs for passive bypass for the Whammy 4. On the left side, outputs to MIDI Whammy, MIDI in, MIDI out, and MIDI chain combined with MIDI through. On the top panel are buttons A and B to control the pedal with your foot. An LED that serves as a position indicator for the virtual expression pedal for the Whammy, a built-in display, and 2 toggle switches. One is to change the information display mode. The second for direct or reverse playback arpeggios, and for state selection for the Whammy when switching modes with the foot switch. More on that later. By the way, the controller has no special power switch, but as usual guitar pedals, it can't be stopped by simply pulling the cable out of the jack, because it isn't always necessary to use the passive bypass loop. To turn off the pedal, do a long press on A in the menu. Select Yes. We really want to turn off the pedal. And click on A or B. You can turn on the controller, as you already know, by pressing one of the buttons or both at once. In the standard display mode, only the most important information is shown. You can see the preset number, which is changed by the encoder. On the left side, you can see an icon which signifies button A's action in this preset, and on the right side, button B. As you can see, right now both buttons are acting as a foot switch. The icon with the footprint at the bottom of the screen means that in this preset, the number 1 is the number of the current step. We'll use the Whammy D2 with the Whammy 5. Setting up the controller to the processor, as we can see, is very simple. When you press the button, you can see exactly what you would expect from a foot switch. The Whammy changes modes, and you can see that we can change the Whammy steps. If we flip the switch to reverse and foot switch mode, we can see that the Whammy turns on and still changes steps. If we flip the switch back, we can see that the Whammy again turns itself off. Everything is very simple and logical. But don't forget that the Whammy 5 has 2 states for every preset, classic and chords. To see extra information, we change the screen to full display mode. This is done with the flip of a switch. In the Whammy D2, all information is easily accessible, even for every note step. Now we can see that our Whammy D2 is in MIDI master mode. The current preset is number 1. The current tempo, which is not so important in foot switch mode, is 120 beats per minute. And this is what we were looking for. Whammy is in classic mode. The current preset number is 1. There is no shift for this step. The length, which is not at all important because it's just a parameter which has a technical meaning, is 1/30 seconds. The way to switch the program steps is fixed. Pressing the A and B button changes nothing but the preset step, and that's how it should be. We changed fixed steps the same way that we change presets in the Whammy. If you don't want to get involved with all this stuff, just leave the switch in the normal mode. There are only 5 foot switches in the controller, and 3 of them are programmable any way that you want. The maximum length of every foot switch is 128 steps or switches, which is more than enough. Maybe you're satisfied with the factory settings of the foot switch. If not, Don't worry, they're very easy to customize. After 5 presets which allow you to select which order your whammy changes modes, there are 5 more presets with a fixed selection of shifts. We'll switch to preset number 6. You can see that the icon for button A changed to a picture of a whammy. This means that button A will no longer work as a foot switch. It will either turn on or turn off the whammy effect. In this preset I have 1 step. It is a momentary shift 1 tone down. Button B is still the same and will switch steps. Second step is 2.5 tones down. And third, 3.5 tones down. The steps are cycled the same. The reverse switch, just like in foot switch mode, selects the state of the whammy during switching, on or off. You can program shifts on any tone, and the whammy will play in any preset. The maximum length of fixed shift sequences is 128 steps, and there are only 5 presets. They're all factory presets, but you can change them any way you want. And next to the fixed shifts, there are 46 presets with Arpeggio, which were the most popular among musicians who tried the first version of the Whammy D controller. The possibilities of arpeggios in the new controller are much wider. Now you can create arpeggios of up to 128 notes, each of which can be one of 11 length choices, and each note can be in any whammy preset. And also we have some new special features available, such as note sweeps, ghost notes, random notes, and markers for controlling arpeggios. Let's go ahead and see how the controls work in arpeggio mode. We'll change the pedal to preset number 11. Icon A hasn't changed. We'll use this icon to turn on or turn off the whammy effect. To be more exact, to play and stop the arpeggios. Instead of seeing the current step number, we see the current tempo displayed in beats per minute. And icon B indicates the tap tempo function. Sometimes, you might accidentally hit the tap button. In this situation, we need to know exactly when the tap tempo function stops. In other words, when the pedal understands that there won't be a second press, you can try to enter the tempo again. This is what the indicator is for. The indicator moves from bottom to top, and when the indicator is no longer displayed, this means that the pedal does not expect a second press on the button. Let's go ahead and try to enter the tempo with the help of tap tempo. We'll press button B once, and the second time we'll press it according to the correct tempo. We see how the tap tempo indicator moved. Now we have a new tempo that is displayed on the screen with the decimals rounded out. Now we'll imitate a situation where we accidentally press the B button. We press. Now we see how the tap tempo indicator is displayed on the screen and disappears. Now the pedal is ready to have the tempo entered again. So we hit the B button again, and this time we correctly enter the tempo with the second press. Now let's correct the tempo manually. To do this, we press the B button, hold it, and change the preset change knob to the correct tempo. Ready! It's that easy to manually change the arpeggio's tempo. The tap tempo function works between 60 and 220 BPM. We can manually enter the tempo from a BPM of 30 all the way to 220. The tempo is saved for every preset. In arpeggio mode, we can use 10 different types of note steps. This can be note shifts, sweeps, random notes, noise, random notes from a preset, markers for arpeggio control, and etc. You can learn more information about this from the user manual, which can be downloaded from our site. Since this is a pretty deep topic, we'll probably talk about this in one of the next videos. You can combine these note steps in any order you wish, with the only restriction being 128 notes in a pattern. The total number of arpeggio presets is 46. They come factory installed, but you can change them any way you like. To check out all the factory presets, click the links below. For changes to MIDI or any other settings of the Whammy D2, go to the Options menu. So we'll turn off the pedal and then turn it on holding the A button until it loads completely. That is how we reach the Options menu. Here we can change such parameters as MIDI channel, system exclusive ID, Whammy model number, switching the passive bypass function for the Whammy 4 on or off, and switching the connection between MIDI clock and MIDI active sense on or off. Also, controls for the lock function, which protects you from accidental button presses. With this setting on, the pedal will only turn on with the long press of both A and B buttons. Exiting the options menu is very easy. Just long press the A and B buttons and the pedal will restart in standard mode. You've probably already noticed that on the Whammy D2, besides the MIDI in for the Whammy, there's also a MIDI out for the Whammy and a MIDI in, MIDI out combined with MIDI through. This means that we can integrate a Whammy D2 into a MIDI chain. The Whammy D2 automatically detects which mode to work in with MIDI. When it detects the MIDI in signal, the pedal switches to MIDI slave mode. If there is no signal on MIDI in for a duration of 250 to 300 milliseconds, the pedal switches to MIDI master mode. It's very simple to see how this works. Let's connect the MIDI interface into the controller's MIDI in, and we switch to the detailed display mode. By pressing the button on the computer, we'll send a couple signals to the pedal. Every time the pedal receives an incoming signal, it switches to slave mode, and after a half a second of silence, switches back to MIDI master mode. In slave mode, the controller can receive signals like MIDI clock, MIDI active sense, tune request, change presets with the program changed, and also interact with several continuous controllers. In this case, for example, in a pedal board, the controller can receive the tempo from the trusty event-tied time factor. For this, we take the delay's MIDI out and connect it to the Whammy D2's MIDI in. In master mode, the controller can synchronize bars to the devices in the chain connected to its MIDI out. Let's see how this works in the pedal board. So we'll connect the Whammy D2's MIDI out to the event-tied's MIDI in. Now we can change the tempo, either with the help of tap tempo or manually with the device. And that isn't even all the possibilities of the controller. You can dramatically increase the possibilities of your Whammy D2 by using MIDI synchronization with your Mac or connecting it to a MIDI sequencer. Controlling the Whammy D2 via sequencer is also really nice. Here's a little MIDI piece that I put into Logic. We'll change the tempo on the upper lines, and we'll change the preset number on the bottom. A signal from program change from 0 to 55 forces the controller to switch the preset and at the same time start playing, while a signal from 56 to 111 simply loads the preset in off mode. Here the preset changes from 20 to 17 and after to 30. Here the pedal receives a signal from program change 85, which corresponds with preset number 30 in off mode. Before loading the preset, the Whammy D2 first loads the save tempo for the current preset. And only after that, the tempo changes to the synchro impulses coming through MIDI. That's why sometimes we see a strange value for the tempo. For example, 220 beats per minute. The value of the tempo received through the MIDI synchronization is not saved in the long-term memory of the controller. They can only be saved through tap tempo or manual input. You can program the pedal manually, but you can make this process a lot easier with the help of the Smirnov Electronics Stompbox software. You can easily and comfortably configure your pedal, edit presets, create new ones, or load downloaded ones. To connect the pedal to your Mac, you need a MIDI interface and the program, which can be downloaded on the official site. To make the musician's life easier, you don't need to set any parameters. Simply connect the interface's MIDI out to the controller's MIDI in, and the interface's MIDI in to the controller's MIDI out. Then we start the program. The red MIDI symbol to the top left indicates that the program sees the MIDI interface but doesn't see the pedal. Choose the correct MIDI in and MIDI out in the settings, and after, the pedal is automatically found. If you want to download the presets from the controller, all you have to do is look for the user in the program. The workspace is divided into 3 parts. On the top is the part for the Whammy D2 settings. You can change them in real time straight through the program. I just turned off bar synchronization, and under the picture of the pedal, the tempo value is displayed in simple words. We can easily change the model of the whammy used while changing the contents of the program's main workspace, displaying the contents of the current controller preset. Let's change the current preset to number 1. Let's look at its contents and try to edit them. In the center part of the program is a field where you can edit downloaded presets and then upload them into the controller's memory, which means that you can do anything you want in this field without being afraid of damaging any preset before you press the button Save to Pedal. This button is on the far right in this field. All incoming changes are not saved to the pedal's long-term memory. To start editing, you should unlock the switch to the left. We can delete the program's steps or groups of these steps, create new ones, move them into a particular order, change parameters to every selected step, create copies of already existing steps. After all the changes, we can test them right in the program without the risk of damaging the presets in the controller. And on the bottom part of the program, we find these 3 strange icons. These buttons differ from all of the other buttons, and they work in test mode. One of these buttons takes all of the presets from the selected whammy of your Whammy D2 and packs it into one file, which is called the pedal profile. And on the contrary, the second button installs a profile to your pedal, and the third, which sits here in the corner, ports a selected preset into the 2 other kinds of whammies, if it's even possible. We'll turn on the synchronization again, and we'll see the contents of the Arpeggio presets. Since we can press the buttons straight from the program, in Arpeggio mode, we can change the tempo with the help of the tap tempo function. And the tempo value, as you can see, changes. With this first introduction to the Stompbox program and the Whammy D2 controller, we've reached an end, but this doesn't mean that we've seen all of the possibilities of the controller. We'll speak about it in more detail in the next video. Thank you for watching. Thumbs up if you liked the video. Check out our group on Vkontakte. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Check out our official site. And please write some comments and questions, and we'll definitely see you next time. Bye bye.